'Tis the season when summer draws to a close and students return to the classroom. As has always been the case, some student learning will be self-directed and some will be directed by the teacher. But the 21st century workplace, only 14 years old and counting, is significantly different from previous workplaces. Valerie Bryan suggests in a recent blog post, quote, using group collaboration tools through such social networks as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the production tools such as YouTube, Flickr, and SlideShare, learners in all age groups have the potential to collaborate, share content, create knowledge, and establish new online communities of practice in virtual clouds, end quote. What does it mean when students become content producers? In part, this means that teachers and professors are increasingly encouraged to play the role of the classroom facilitator as opposed to the lecturer embodied by Ferris Bueller's economics teacher. We are joined this morning by Helen Soule, Executive Director of the Partnership for 21st Century Skills, or P21. Good morning, Helen. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Rebecca. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Could you start by telling us a little bit more about self-directed learning and how it has shifted in the wake of online collaboration tools?
Sure, I would be happy to. So we at the Partnership think that self-directed learning is critically important for today's workplace, as you just so eloquently described. Students today do not have to be lectured to. Teachers are no longer the holder, the vessel for all of the information, and students have the ability to not only seek out some of their own information under the leadership, certainly, and the facilitation of the teacher, but also they have the ability to really and should learn how to manage their own learning, be responsible for some of that learning, and really take an active role in it.
Great. So now let's jump to specifically P21. What are 21st century skills, and what does the Partnership for 21st Century Skills do to cultivate those skills? A lot of skills.
So the Partnership is a nonprofit catalyst organization. We are a coalition of education leaders, business community, and state and federal policymakers. And our goal and mission is to ensure that all students, and I really mean all students, have the rigorous content knowledge and skills they need to be not just college ready, but career ready and citizenship ready. So we developed, with this coalition of business, education, and policymakers, state and federal policymakers, we developed what we call the framework for 21st century learning. And that framework really describes the relationships between content knowledge and skills, as well as identifies the skills that students need to know and have in order to be successful. Some of those skills are what we call the 4 C's, which are creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. Those are amazingly important in whatever endeavor a student will continue with after high school and after college and just in their life. And it can be used no matter what their occupation, profession, or livelihood is. In addition to that, we have identified, we have a section of skills called information, media, and technology skills that outline really the importance not only of the ability to use the technologies that you talked about, the tools and the applications, but also the ability to understand media, understand point of view, be smart about the messages that are coming across our screens so that they know when people are being truthful with them, and it's not all true, as they say. And then lastly, the framework also identifies what we call life and career skills, leadership, responsibility, the self-direction you spoke about, the social and emotional awareness, and sort of that suite of skills we think are critically important to enable students to use the knowledge that they have and that they are gaining in school.
As we take a look at the technology and at students having the ability, obviously, to use that technology. Kids, I mean, I have a 19-month-old, and he's figured out how to do things on my phone that I didn't even know were possible. Right. When we look at younger people, definitely have the ability to use the technology. What is the biggest barrier, I guess, the biggest difficulty that your organization faces in getting them to use technology for good purposes and not just for entertainment purposes, games, things like that?
Well, it's really important that they have a real understanding of the messages and what is being projected and what they're seeing. You know, it's often been called media literacy. And that's really understanding how and why the messages are constructed, the various values and points of view that are being projected, and understanding the legal and ethical issues. So both in creating media as well as in, receiving media and actually understanding the media, as I say, that comes across your screen. With children and students, it's often all taken as truth. They don't have the sort of sophisticated understanding to be able to analyze and really effectively use what they're seeing and understand what they're seeing and what they're doing. So that's the part that's really the challenge, and it's critical for teachers to play that role and to help them in understanding it so that they really can be smart consumers of the technologies and that they have.
Building on that with the media literacy that you're talking about and understanding that some things may not be true, I think with the older folks who are also going on online and seeing news stories or what they think are news stories that may not be from reputable sources or even from reputable sources are reported so fast that they don't go through the vetting process that would normally happen. How do you teach someone how to figure out what is real, what is true, what isn't? I mean, there's so many different ways that people can be lied to nowadays with the internet. How do you teach someone to be able to see through all of those?
Well, it takes some experience. It takes us teaching them how to step back by looking at different messages in different ways, by asking critical questions and having them kind of analyze even commercials. Everyday things that are around them, and giving them some practical skills that they can use in order to really step back and look at what they're seeing. The libraries actually do, and certainly in schools, but also out of schools, have a great curricula and standards around information literacy, which really teach these very skills that we're talking about. There are some great resources at the Center for Media Literacy, which can be found online. And, there'll be sample lessons and activities and that sort of thing. And so, I would encourage parents and teachers and educators, to really utilize those resources in order to get examples and to help people think through what they're seeing.
Great. I think for me, one of the key parts of this is just recognizing what Eric just said, that there are that things are twisted, and like you said, that you can't just accept everything as truth. Just the mere knowledge that there are these different streams and that people need to kind of be aware of that. I think that just knowing that is a good first step, because it helps people be more critical and raise those questions you were talking about. But another question I have, so if we've got a classroom learning environment where we do have this self-directed learning going on, I envision this very easily for something like homeschooling, where it's just a parent and a student, or maybe two students. It seems very manageable. But I wanted to know, how does this work when an educator has a room full of maybe 25 students who are participating in the process of self-directing their own studies?
Well, that's a great question. And teachers really have received preparation and training in how to do this and how to manage groups and how to manage students. But I think that one of the keys to it and one of the great aids that we have now is the technology. Mm-hmm. Because the technology and the applications that are available now for educational purposes do have the ability to enable a student to move through a curriculum at a pace that is more self-directed. There are also some great programs that we have seen that build self-awareness in students, such as there's a program called The Leader in Me, which is done by Stephen Covey's group, and it's for children as opposed to the 7 Habits for adults. And we have a P21 has an exemplar schools program. We look for great examples of schools that are doing this kind of learning, both self-directed and individualized, but also what we call 21st century learning that's engaged and connected to the real world, where a teacher is a facilitator as opposed to just a lecturer.
Right. Right.
And we have found some great programs in a lot of different schools around that really help promote self-directed learning and student responsibility and awareness. Several of them are built on The Leader in Me. Okay. Those are on our website, and I would love it's p21.org.
Great.
And would love for people to go and look at those case studies. They're called Patterns of Innovation, and they're all there. They're in video as well as a PDF form, and there are lots of pictures, and there's also a iTunes podcast series.
Oh, excellent. This actually leads me to, so you directed the conversation to now the classrooms and how this is being implemented. It's been a long-running discussion about the Common Core and how that's been taken by different states and the discussion surrounding that. Can you, I guess, talk about how P21, the curriculum there, differs from the Common Core, or how they're used together with one another? How does P21 envision that?
Sure, and first maybe a couple of distinctions.
Sure.
So the Common Core is really not a curriculum.
Okay.
It is just a set of standards around which a curriculum can be built.
Okay.
And P21's framework is really not a curriculum either. It is articulation and definition of skills and that students need to have as they learn through their curriculum.
Okay.
So the Common Core itself has built into it standards that are very compatible. Several of the standards are very compatible with some of our primary skills, such as critical thinking. There's a great deal of critical thinking kind of fused throughout the Common Core. Communication and collaboration. You'll see evidence of that throughout the Common Core in language arts, English, and math. However, there are other skills that are very important, as I named before in the framework, including creativity, including the media, technology, and information skills, and the leadership and self-direction skills. So the other, and there are lots of other there are lots of other subjects. The Common Core is just English, language arts, and math. And there are many other science and social studies, etc., geography, foreign language. There's lots of other important subjects in which these skills can be infused into the learning environment.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the maybe misconception that when we as a society, put, infuse these technologies into the classroom, that it's just students sitting in front of screens with the educator up front, like we say, facilitating? Because you mentioned collaboration, creativity, and I think maybe for some that it might be hard to picture this in the classroom. So can you talk about how it's not just students sitting in front of computers?
Yes, great, and thank you for that question, because it's a really important one. Just as we don't want just students just sitting in front of a teacher with a teacher imparting information to them, we don't want students sitting in front of a computer with the computer spewing, information. And the great thing is that technology can facilitate the collaboration and the creativity and really spark that and engage students in really interesting ways. It takes, preparation and skill on behalf of the teacher to make sure that happens. But teachers are very good at this and usually, in most cases, embrace this greatly. And so, in fact, we have one of our exemplar schools in which the principal said to us, we made the decision not to purchase one computer for every student because we wanted to be sure that the activities in which we used the technology were ones in which they were able to work in groups. Mm. And so there are many strategies that you can employ and many applications that really facilitate students being able to do things in groups using the technologies. And plus the technologies are so mobile now that it can be outside, it can be inside. They can be, they're a part of our lives out of school. They should be a part of our lives in school.
Exactly. All right, I'm going to ask one final question. I saw a lot of mention of something called project-based learning on the P21 website. Can you just tell us a little bit about what project-based learning is?
Sure. So we are a big fan of project-based learning at P21. It is a very powerful approach to learning that offers a wealth of opportunities to build 21st century skills, as well as really deepen knowledge and expertise. So project-based learning is sort of exactly what the name implies. Students are taught in the curriculum is built around usually large projects that take place over usually several days, sometimes months, and those projects are very, very well defined and planned. The standards and curriculum is infused into the projects. They are usually cross-curricular, and so students work in teams, work in groups to accomplish, a final, to produce a product or create a project. It's a great way to really engage students in their own learning, and it does take some expertise. There are some terrific places, such as the Buck Institute, that where teachers can go to be trained to be good project leaders. They also need some project management skills, which the Project Management Institute Foundation has some great, and who's one of our members, has some really great resources for teachers about managing projects. But it's a great way to get the students involved in and make the learning more real.
Excellent.
And that's a fantastic thing to happen. A little technical difficulty there. I forgot to press a button. Well, Helen, thank you so much for joining us. We've been talking to Helen Soule, the Executive Director of Partnership for 21st Century Skills. And Helen, what again is the website that people can go to find out more?
Sure, www.p21.org.
Fantastic. Helen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really fascinating discussion.
Thank you so much.